This conference is your conference in the main. If you take decisions here as recommendations, it is in actual fact the branches.
We will not withdraw our president from parliament. And we will not withdraw our president, in fact, from the executive.
In the ANC, there's no succession. There's no kingship or traditional leadership system within the African National Congress.
If then you have structures on the outside and then they begin to do things on their own in the outside, it undermines the very constitution of the African National Congress.
Radical means fundamentally different. It doesn't mean just tinkering with what exists.
When the car moved, they said the dog barks. So the ANC must move on.
Because we are the only ones who can hire and fire.
Warm hugs and hearty laughs belie a fierce factional battle raging in the African National Congress. As the ANC's 5th National Policy Conference got underway, none other than struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela Mandela took it upon herself to broker unity. The leaders may be divided in camps ahead of the presidential contest in December, but the policy conference left no doubts about where the majority cadre support lies. Given a resounding welcome by the branches, an appreciative Zuma used the platform to assert their authority and powers.
This conference is your conference in the main. If you take decisions here as recommendations, it is in actual fact the branches that have taken the decisions. You take all the decisions. If you are to elect the leader of the organization, the president, there's no other forum that can elect a president except the conference of the branches. Because you are the only ones who can hire and fire and connection with the people.
Alluding to the veterans and stalwarts missing in action, the ANC leader said some party seniors are undermining the processes of the ANC. Zuma said that instead of engaging with the branches, the veterans chose media to vent their angst, a clear attempt to undermine the branches.
It's a very fun. It's like now a real organization. Operating, I'm sure they must be having an office or something. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Because they're very organized. They organize the media and, in fact, communicate with us in the majority of cases through the media. Now, I'm not sure whether it is true because I've been traveling a lot. I was told that they said to the SGO, they don't think the quality of the discussion here will be at the level. They need serious discussion.
In the opening speech itself, Zuma decisively took on his detractors, both within the ANC and outside. He did not spare the opposition either, taking a dig at several attempts through the courts and motions of no confidence to oust him.
argue in Parliament, and then the opposition is defeated. They say, okay, we are going to Parliament, we are going to court. In other words, the debate in Parliament these days ends up in courts. Is that the democracy we thought we were doing? I think these are matters we need to discuss very seriously as the African National Congress.
The policy conference comes a month ahead of yet another scheduled vote of no confidence. While the opposition is trying hard to oust Zuma, his party stands firmly behind him.
We will not withdraw our president from Parliament. And we will not withdraw our president, in fact, from the executive. So all party members, in terms of the ANC discipline, are supposed to follow that particular position. Now, the extent to which people will be ill-disciplined, the ANC will have to apply the disciplinary procedure for those who want to use the so-called conscience to determine the voting in Parliament.
The ANC is not going to recall President Zuma, but what we have right now is a motion of the opposition parties, which is in Parliament, and we have the decision of the ANC, which is clear, that President Zuma should remain as the president of the ANC. We can't be dictated, we can't fall into the trap of following the agenda of the opposition, and therefore members of the ANC, when they go to Parliament, they must be clear.
Not only did pro-Zuma voices make themselves heard at the conference, those in opposing camps had to eat humble pie on more than one occasion. Delegates labeled ANC MP Dr. Makosi Khoza a sellout and a fake after she criticized Mbalula, intriguingly, for asking the MPs to follow the party constitution. Former Tourism Minister Derek Anakom was reportedly asked to leave after he dismissed the idea of land expropriation without compensation.
The pro-Zuma faction, almost by 90%, said to those who wished President Zuma to step down, having come to this policy conference, hoping to shut down President Jacob Zuma or shut down radical economic transformation, have been told in no uncertain words to say, if you don't want radical economic transformation, you don't agree with President Jacob Zuma, you don't agree with the mining charter, you don't agree with the expropriation of land, then you should rather leave the ANC. And I think this big debate goes on the realms of radical economic transformation because they feel that if any ANC member continues to deny that white monopoly capital exists or deny that expropriation of land should be granted without compensation, that person does not represent the ANC.
As power battles played out behind closed doors, the white monopoly capital debate hogged the spotlight. President Jacob Zuma made it clear that the appropriate way to characterize the phenomena of white monopoly capital in South Africa is to call it white monopoly capital.
The correct characterization of phenomenon is important. In this regard, it is technically correct in the context of the South African political economy to talk of white monopoly capital.
But a lot of debate and fireworks preceded the final stamp of clarity. ANC NEC member Joel Nichitenze triggered a fierce backlash after announcing that 9 of 11 commissions have rejected the phrase.
9 out of those 11 commissions said the phenomenon of monopoly capital is a global one, and it manifests itself differently in various parts of the globe. And in that context, it would therefore not be correct to characterize ours simply as white monopoly capital. It was also felt that we need to elaborate in that context that in the South African situation, we cannot run away from the reality of white dominance in the economy, in the context of assets, of income, of the professions, as well as other privileges that we have inherited from the past.
Delegates were up in arms over the declaration that white monopoly capital phrase had been rejected by the commissions.
In our own South African context, in terms of race, there is white dominance, but it also has patriarchy in terms of gender. Those are the issues that we looked at. But remember, this discussion ultimately is not about the nomenclature and the terminologies. At the end of the day, these documents are going to go back to the members of the ANC into the branches, and at the very same time, we will also be engaging society in some of these issues. Ultimately, the conference is the highest decision-making board in December that will be able to do. But I will not be venturing into the reporting that was happening in that particular commission, because even in our own discussions, we've agreed that in as much as our report was accepted with enhancement, it's not a final report, it's not a resolution, it still remains a recommendation for further engagement.
And what that report said is actually that you are not doing much about people who are left on the periphery to bring them in the mainstream of the economy in a form of small, medium, and micro enterprises, in employment situations. So, if you don't, the structure of your economy is not in a good shape because of that. And the report was saying, do something and do it right now. So if we say there are laws that have been there since 1994, 1995, and yet they are not helping to produce this thing, you've got to increase the size of your whip. And the size of your whip is increased here today. Going towards national conference will obviously have to, and people have to understand that there are reasons why we increase the size of our whip, because there's no reaction, there's no response from the other side. No, let me say adequate response from the other side of big business. So it has to happen.
Nichitenze's blatant misinterpretation of facts was called out by none other than the steering committee. Gwede Mantashe, the chairperson of the conference's steering committee, reiterated that Nichitenze was wrong for revealing the number of commissions that rejected the proposal and apologized on the commission's behalf.
The majority of the delegates in conference seem to be agreeing that indeed there is white monopoly capital. Hopefully they can also be ad idem now to say we need radical economic transformation, and that must be underpinned by macroeconomic policy changes that are so fundamental. Without it, there is no politics. Those that are saying, look, there is no white monopoly capital, those that are saying there is no need to change radically the economic makeup of this country, it tells you exactly because they are paid pipers who have to what? Sing the tune as so called by the masters that pay them. And we have to call it for exactly what it is.
So you have a large number of black people who have been brought up under the notion of white supremacy, that thought system. So anything that tampers with that system, it does not require white people to defend it. Black people will jump to defend it. So what has happened now, it's a distraction within the ANC, where they start wanting to claim that there is no white monopoly capital. Instead, what they are saying is that no, but the ANC talks about white domination. But the one who dominates monopolizes, and the one who monopolizes also dominates. So it is an attempt not to deal with white control of our economy.
It is ultimately Zuma himself who cleared the grey areas on the definition and nature of monopoly capital.
The correct characterization of phenomenon is important. In this regard, it is technically correct in the context of the South African political economy to talk of white monopoly capital.
The ANC recognizes that monopoly capital of whatever kind or race is not desirable and cannot be accepted as it constrains the economy from growth and radical innovation.
Comrade Natim Tetwa put it properly, President concluded it properly by saying the enemy of the revolution is monopoly capital. That is the form. But the content in our situation where economy is dominated by white ownership and control, therefore the white monopoly capital is more the content than the form.
In South Africa, we've got monopoly, and it is the monopoly that is based on the fact that those who own means of production in the country benefited from the apartheid regime, and they are white.
Our economy is dominated by a few white conglomerates. Nobody can show me what black or green or whatever conglomerates that are dominating the economy. There's no disagreement within the ANC about that.
Most of the capital in our economy is in the hands of white male South Africans. This is not our dream. This is the reality of South Africa. So we are saying, therefore, when you talk about white monopoly capital, or you call it whatever you want to call it, we are talking about this phenomenon.
The bulk of the economy is held in white hands, and that must change. No quarrel about that, no need to define, there has to be a shift.
President Zuma has also been fiercely championing the cause of radical economic transformation. There is consensus in the ANC on working for speedier reforms, and land expropriation being one of the top priorities.
There's a discussion about compensation without, taking land back without compensation. There may be other solutions, we don't know, at the end of this discussion, but we have to have land belonging to the people in this country, and not in a way that we have done over the past 20 years.
We are proposing in this conference that there must be land redistribution without compensation and without land grabbing in the context of the law.
Some are raising the issue of a referendum, others are raising the issues around no compensation, others are saying let's have a mix of everything, including that we have been doing. If it has not worked, let's perfect it.
For our view is that land expropriation without compensation, it's a way to go.
The party is going all out to ensure land restitution. President Zuma has succeeded in putting the option of expropriation without compensation up for discussion in party ranks.
We agree that using the focus for land redistribution must be accompanied by other measures if we are to achieve the goal at the required pace. Where it is necessary and unavoidable, this may include expropriation without compensation within the law, within the Constitution.
What are the two options on land? Simply put, is expropriation without compensation, expropriation with compensation, but all the parties are agreed that we need a radical transformation.
There's nothing in our law that talks of willing buyer, willing seller. It is what we regulated ourselves on, and therefore it's something that has already been rejected by the ANC, and hence Minister Gugile Quinty was already implementing the 50-50 approach. So all I can say is that this policy conference has given us the space. Come December, I think there will be a better report and accounting on how best to use the law and how best to tweak the law where it needs to be tweaked, and most importantly, how best to accelerate land redistribution in South Africa.
Land disposition was, among others, the reason why the African National Congress was formed. in response to conquer and land disposition. The ANC cannot fail to give land back to the people, because it's a historical mission of the ANC upon which it was formed. But that, in the context of constitutional democracy, it can be done in a manner that is adventurous, in a manner that is populist.
Driven by its president, the governing party is taking no prisoners when it comes to transformation. Party Treasurer General Zwelin Kize minced no words in telling the capitalists that transformation was not optional.
We cannot have companies that think that they can be left out and then not be part of the transformation. Because this matter was discussed inside the industry, we hope that the others will also participate. Alternatively, something needs to be made clear to them that if the industry is transforming, there's no space to allow those who have particular irregular practices in the past to actually continue as though things are normal and they don't conform to what needs to be done for the good of their industry and for the good of the country and for the good of transformation.
ANC leaders' push for rapid reforms seem to have helped him gain a lot of support on the ground.
If the ANC is hoping that they're going to just receive transformation because you've got a benevolent incumbent who is monopolistic and oligopolistic in their control of the economy, then that is dreamland. They're going to have to take it by force because negotiation has been tried, has not worked. It simply means that somebody's going to have to be dispossessed of what they are holding dear, whether or not they need it as a matter of necessity or they want it as a matter of gratification.
ANC is a broad church, that's one, and the ANC is a contested terrain. So it being a broad church, it includes different thinking like classes within one movement, of which these classes are not at the same layer of thinking and the needs are different as well. But on the other side, it being a contested terrain, it will mean that these classes will be contesting ideas continuously and in a different, way. The class that has a mass base, it is naturally that of Jacob Zuma's class, because you will find that the country has high Gini coefficient, a lot of people are not mainstreamed in the society, and a lot of social challenges that the country is experiencing, it reflects in the character of Jacob Zuma.
As the dust settles after the ANC's 5th policy conference, the race for succession is just about picking up speed. In anticipation of bruising battles ahead of the elective conference set for December 2017, President Zuma has thrown a curveball. Denouncing the current winners take it all policy, Zuma proposed a power sharing formula for his successor.
The experiences of our past conferences have taught us that the factionally driven winner-takes-all attitude is not in the best interest of the African National Congress. For the sake of our unity, for the sake of the organization, we need to amend the ANC constitution on one factor. The comrade who was nominated to become the deputy, when he wins, he becomes the number 2 deputy.
The idea took many by surprise and is yet to be discussed by the branches for approval.
This is for discussion. Let's get branches to discuss. Let's hear what they've got to say.
The president was trying to find a formula that will keep us united and strong. And of course, we all want a united, strong ANC. So I don't think anyone can say otherwise. We do want a strong, united organization. The branches must go and discuss and take a decision in December.
It's not power sharing between one group or another. It's a proposal that seeks to take our movement, the African National Congress, forward based on its experience of having experienced divisions in the past. As President was saying, from 2007 in Polokwane, we can't repeat the same mistakes. We must show to South Africans that we are serious about not only leading the ANC, but leading our country.
Sometimes when people think a woman is going to win the election, they would bring in a man so that they are there. It always looks as if they are there to give a support to a woman, and therefore we need to have in-depth discussions of how is this going to be done.
There's no decision that has been taken. These are matters of further discussion and engagement. Just as what President Zuma said, we are all unanimous in saying, let's break the slate. We don't need a slate. We don't need factions. What we need a collective that can be able to take the revolution forward and continue to make the ANC a leader of society.
President Jacob Zuma has triumphed again with his strategic approach. In what could prove to be a political masterstroke, the president isolated himself from camps and factions. But can a united state heal a divided ANC?
I think he showed great maturity as a political leader to speak of unity, but we mustn't speak of unity in a compromised way, and that is my one fear. So I'm hoping the branches will take this forward in a far more progressive way as we venture towards December, and I do believe they will. I'm seeing the momentum at the conference, the mood at the conference being very supportive of a totally new radical thrust in the ANC, something that it hasn't done fully in the last 23 years.
Even the current president, when he was in Polokwane, there was a contestation. So if it was a tradition, there was no need for him to contest against Thabo Mbeki. He would have simply moved by way of tradition. Right. So let us put it as simply a historical nonsense and also logically inconsistent with other processes that suggest that there must be contestation and there must be a policy conference, so that once you have a policy, you want to make sure that you have the right person and the right leadership to take those policies forward. So it can't be automatic.
The ANC is not going to pick a leader, but what they're going to do is elect or select and approve policies. And behind the veil of policy lies a particular leader. And for example, if you stand for radical economic transformation and free education, that would reveal Ms. Nkosazana Zuma. And on the other hand, if one appoints or selects another policy, that might suggest Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. So behind the veil of policy lies a leader, and that's where we're going in December 2017.
President Zuma says the ANC has emerged more united in its purpose than ever from the policy conference. All signs indicate towards a consolidated support for his reformative policies. The 6-day deliberations have given the party a lot of ground to cover before they meet again in December.
Thank you very much.